Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Colorado LTAP Tailgate Talks. I'm Sue Baillargeon, and I am going to be the instructor for this tailgate talk today. Today, we're going to talk about the hazards of working along the roadway, and specifically, we're talking about developing a situational awareness. And here's why we're talking about it. Number one, you encounter many different environmental hazards while you're out there working on the road. And number two, you're exposed to hazards from traffic and heavy equipment in your work area as well. So, how do you protect yourself from, well, just about anything out there with knowledge? So, here we go. First of all, you need to be visible. During the day, stay out of shady areas to be more visible to traffic. Stay away from equipment that is similarly colored to your PPE. In some states and public works, they are changing to white trucks and equipment to make their employees more visible in the work zone so that they contrast to that orange or that yellow PPE that y'all are wearing. At night or when people are driving with their lights on, stay out of the glare of the headlights so traffic can see you more clearly. Set up your flagging station with a good that's a good distance away from vehicle lights. Day or night, make sure you know where you are in relation to traffic at all times. Remember that situational awareness. And really, all that means is knowing what's going on around you all the time and being very aware of the changes that are happening while you're out there. Things like stooping or bending, those are kinds of things that will make you less visible to traffic. So avoid doing any of those things when you're near traffic. Also, at night, use as much PPE as you can to be visible. Personal body lights, like the joggers wear, are a great way to be more visible on the roadside, especially if you're not doing traffic control. Um, Always at night, use Class 3 PPE for night work so that you're much more visible as a human being out there on the road. And here's a great example of Class 3 PPE during a nighttime operation. The guy in the middle has no reflectivity on his lower extremities. So that's not Class 3 PPE, and it's not nearly as visible as the others in the photo, as you can see. And if he were to walk away from all of them, he would kind of be out there on his own, not as visible as the rest of them. Watch for large side mirrors of passing vehicles as well as checking your own when you exit your vehicle. There are so many stories and photos on the internet showing the disastrous results of not seeing those mirrors in time. And up here in the corner, you can see one of those. I think they're called California mirrors. Check your work zone or your lane closure after you set it up and periodically throughout the day to make sure that it's still properly in place and visible to traffic. This is for the protection of traffic as well as the protection of your agency if there should be an incident in your work zone, right? We all know what happens or who the first people are to show up when there's an incident in your on your job, and those are the lawyers. Always be on the lookout for potential hazards. What's around you? Do you have an escape route? And where will you go if a vehicle comes at you while you're, standing on a bridge or an overpass or even an underpass? Like, what's your best chance of preventing a tragedy? Um, Stay out of any crush zones like underpasses if you can, any between pieces of equipment or other structures along the roadway. And don't put yourself between two stationary pieces of equipment where you could be crushed if one of them moves for whatever reason. Use the buddy system whenever you can. Two pairs of eyes are always better than one when there are so many hazards. I can't tell you how many times I have been personally yanked out of oncoming traffic just because I glanced at a clipboard for 1 second and didn't pay attention to what was going on around me. There will be times when you're all working in tight spaces, like in this photo, but there will also be times when you're separated or working independently from the crew, and it's always a good idea to have someone else aware of your location. There's no worse feeling than knowing that you're in trouble and nobody knows about it and nobody's going to come help you. Always let people know where you are and what you're doing. When you are working with heavy equipment, have an agreed upon method of communication before you start. Will you use radios or hand signals to communicate to the operator if you're on the ground? If you use hand signals, make sure you agree on the meaning of those hand signals. Make sure they're consistent with your operation and that both of you know exactly what each hand signal is supposed to mean. Make eye contact with the operator as often as possible. It keeps you aware of the location of the equipment and the operator aware of your location. Also, know as much as you can about the equipment blind spots. The worst place to be by far is directly behind any piece of equipment. As you can see in all of these little diagrams here, the absolute worst place to be. Every single one of them has a blind spot in the back. So be aware of what those blind spots are. If you can't see the operator, it's a good chance he can't see you. Never hitch a ride on a moving piece of equipment. Never ever hitch a ride on a moving piece of equipment. If you cannot buckle into the seat, you should not be on that equipment. If you are operating any type of equipment, including a pickup truck, wear the seat belt. If you park your truck near traffic and or in the work zone, put the strobe lights on for added visibility. Stay on the protected side of the road when you're working near a permanent or a temporary divider. However you set up your work zone, make sure you remain within the boundaries of that work zone unless you're driving out of it in your truck. The divider, this type of divider that you see here, this is positive protection for you in the work zone and should not be crossed. But never ever cross bi-directional traffic, even if you're crossing, especially if you're crossing from one side of an interstate to the other. Um, it's just not a good idea. There's no warning that you're out there, traffic is not expecting you, and you're putting yourself in the worst possible place. Keep your head on a swivel. I found this song by Gary Ritchie, and I was just looking up Keep Your Head on a Swivel, and this is what showed up. But look in all directions for vehicles that blend in with the surroundings, school buses, pedestrians, emergency vehicles, children, animals, anything that's out there, anything that could possibly be going on in your work zone. Watch for it. Look at it. Does it look right? Are things happening the way they're supposed to happen? Do you see anything that's unusual or out of the ordinary? Speak up if you do. And what about safety when you aren't doing traffic control? Being aware of your surroundings is just as important due to all of the other hazards out there that could get you. Things like insects, right? Here's just one. This is a picture of a tick, a deer tick. These are the life stages, and you can see from the photo how small these things are. The adult limb stage ticks on the fingernail are on the right. These are the tiny little, you can just see how little they are. And they're everywhere, everywhere. So are poisonous plants. Poison ivy is the most common, or here are the three most common that will affect you at work. Always poison ivy primarily. Not that thorny plants won't do damage to your skin, but these three will cause rashes that can be debilitating. Poison ivy is the most common, but sumac and oak are out there as well and typically cause the same symptoms. So be aware of what types of plants are around you when you're standing out there. Plan your route through the work zone to avoid, or the area that you're working in, to avoid impacting any other work that's going on. Be aware of objects or materials that might come off of equipment, such as paint, um, pieces of brush, sand, rocks, any type of material, and your proximity to them. Watch for things that are sticking out when some of your equipment is going by or some of your work trucks are going by. Are there things on them that shouldn't be there or that are hazardous, or things that are hanging on them that you could take off? Um, Watch where you park your vehicle to avoid the work area, the equipment, and any incoming vehicles. And don't park where you'll drive over new asphalt or over catch basins or over fresh landscaping or seeded areas. You're not going to make any friends if you do that. And this is the voice of experience. I have done that myself. Driven over a freshly placed catch basin only to have the crew have to go back and do it over again. They weren't happy. So park where you won't have to go over any of those things. And always, always, always park where you can avoid backing up when you leave. Always try to avoid backing up. There are many jobs that require you to walk in the shoulder and on the grassy area of the road. When the grass is even slightly high, not even this high as in this picture, but just a little bit of grass can hide so many hazards. They can hide holes in the ground or slopes that you might not see, downed barbed wire or metal fences that could trip you or you could get caught in. They can hide stakes, posts, things that are broken off or just stuck in the ground. They can also hide snakes and other types of critters and animals that won't be happy to be disturbed either. So be extremely vigilant walking through the grass and always be aware of your proximity to moving traffic. Here's a lot of pictures of different things, right? All of the different things that you folks are doing out there. And some of them can be pretty elaborate and confusing. Some of them are pretty straightforward and not confusing. But the bottom line is this: each roadside site is unique and has its own hazards. Pay attention to the changing situation and use the proper PPE. So the key points today: traffic poses the biggest hazard to roadside workers. Use your PPE, maintain your situational awareness, know what's going on around you all the time. Make sure you have an escape route for whatever it is you're doing should something come at you or you need to leave quickly. Equipment poses the second significant hazard to workers. Know the blind spots on the equipment that you're working with. Always make eye contact with the operator, and always, always, always keep your head on a swivel. If you want to know more about the information that I got today, I got it from the NLTAPA website. That is the National LTAP Association, and they have a whole long list of different types of safety topics that you can share with your crews if you're in there. Thank you all and stay safe, and I'll see you at the next Colorado LTAP Tailgate Talk. No.